I won the United States Memory Championship, I was able to memorize a deck of playing cards, like a shuffled deck of playing cards, in a little under 90 seconds. But nowadays, the top competitors can even do it in under 30 seconds. So the top scores go up and higher every year, just like in physical sports, right? You see people are breaking records every year, right? What people thought were possible in terms of physical tasks, abilities 10 years ago, right? It's quite different now, right? 10 years later, those limits have really been pushed. So it's the same for the mind and for memory as well. So nowadays, I no longer compete, but I train other people in these types of techniques.
Yeah, and something like sorting a deck of playing cards, from what I understand from my own, limited training in cognitive psychology, you need to be able to sort by color, shape. It's not so easy. It's like different types of memory skills.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You hit on that. So the playing cards event actually is considered one of the most difficult because the information is so abstract, right? And there are so many aspects to that information, as you just pointed out. Whereas, for instance, the random word events might be a little bit easier in the United States Memory Championship because it isn't as abstract. But there are techniques for all of this stuff, no matter what the information type. There are three main principles that I'll talk about that will apply no matter what specific technique you end up using and no matter what the information type is. The three main principles that memory champions like myself would always employ are: one, visualization. So try to turn whatever type of information it is that you're tackling, turn it into something you can see in your mind, something you can picture. We're very good at remembering things that we see. An example that I think everyone can relate to, let's say you go to a party, all right? You go to a party, you're meeting a lot of new people, all right? 2 weeks after that party is over, you're talking with one of your friends that was there with you. And your friend says, "Hey, Richard, remember that attorney that we met at the party a couple weeks ago? He's also a member of the tennis club." Mm-hmm. As your friend is going through that description of the person from the party, a lot of times you can picture, right, who they're talking about. You might even remember what that person was wearing at the party or where they were standing at the party when you met them. But a lot of times, neither one of you can manage to remember what the person's name was, right? So that's one example. A second example I'll give quickly: how many times have you been describing to a friend or family member an actor from a movie or a TV show? As you're going through that description, obviously in your mind, you can picture who you're talking about. Your friend or family member can also picture who you're describing, but neither one of you can come up with the name, and it's really frustrating to both of you, right? So those two examples illustrate pretty well that when it comes to dealing with people, we tend to be pretty good at remembering faces, but we're not nearly as good at remembering the names. Now, when you think about it, it makes sense because when we are interacting with people in various ways, we see the face, right? The face is recorded into our visual memory, but at no point do we actually see the name. The name is something much more abstract to the brain. So one way that you can get better at remembering names is to turn the names in some way into a visual. So Mike, I might visualize a microphone. Alice, sometimes I visualize a white rabbit because that reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. And using that sort of idea, I'm actually able to open my presentations a lot of times with naming hundreds of people in the audience after just meeting everybody once before the presentation starts. But that's one principle: visualization. Second thing is try to involve additional senses if you can from there. Because as you involve additional senses, you're activating more areas of your brain and you're building more and more connections in your mind to the information. So I started in one point in an episode of PBS's Nova Science. They had me on there and I performed, what at first seemed like all these crazy memory feats. Then they had me train David Pogue. You guys might know him from the New York Times. After that, they had these brain scientists, neuroscientists. And their job was to, explain to people at home, how in the world did Chester do that? How was the host of the show able to do it after a little bit of training? And these brain scientists confirmed that it's because with these types of techniques, we're recruiting extra areas of the brain. So areas of the brain that people wouldn't normally use when committing things to memory, with these types of techniques, we're recruiting more of the brain to help us. And part of this is learning to use more senses in order to activate more of your brain.